really unprecedented times, this, to see something as many as 100 kings and queens and heads of state arriving in the capital, the most number of dignitaries that we've had on British soil since the funeral of Winston Churchill.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be a logistical nightmare. There will be people in Westminster and in Whitehall right now going, I just hope this goes according to plan. They've never had to do something like this. They're ferrying everyone in, asking people to get commercial flights and asking heads of state to be willing to be bussed into Westminster Abbey is something quite extraordinary. The idea that we could be seeing presidents and kings and queens literally on buses together. It's really quite surreal, but I think everyone will be hoping that everyone plays their part to make this run as smoothly as possible.
And Dan, just give us a little insight into who's being given permission to use their own vehicles, because I understand the heavily armoured Cadillac known as the Beast, belonging to the President of the United States, is being permitted to be used by President Biden, but perhaps some surprising admissions as well being permitted in the form of the Emperor of Japan, I think the President of Israel. How do people make the shortlist for using their own armoured vehicles, I wonder?
Well, actually, this entire thing has all been done on advice. The Whitehall officials have said, please, would you mind using commercial flights, and please, would you mind being shuttled in on a bus in order to help us when it comes to the logistics of getting everyone in as quickly as possible. But actually, if they said, no, we don't want to, they don't have to. So I think what we're really seeing is a little bit of a power play, and those places like the United States can just say, no, we're not doing that. And because of their status in the world, kind of get away with it. And I think what we'll see is probably a number of Commonwealth countries with a real close connection to the Queen will probably be the ones who are more likely to say, yes, actually, we're willing to play our part, and yes, we're willing to get the bus in. And it will be those who, unfortunately, have a bit more power on the world stage who are probably more willing to say, no, actually, we're putting our foot down, we're going to take it our own way.
Yes. Dan, sometimes in these sorts of situations, it's the people who aren't invited that perhaps raise more of an eyebrow. I understand that, for obvious reasons, Putin won't be getting an invite from Buckingham Palace, but I do have heard whispers that perhaps the Russian ambassador may be included on that VIP list. Will there be any more surprising invitations or exclusions?
Well, I think the guest list is incredibly interesting because this isn't actually organised by Whitehall. As you said, it's organised by Buckingham Palace, and that means it's not up to Liz Truss as Prime Minister or the Foreign Secretary. It is up to Palace officials, and they've got very different relationships in some ways to those that our government does. For example, we think that there could be some representative from North Korea there. We don't exactly have warm relations with North Korea, but there is a bond that has formed there over the years between the two countries, and North Korea does see the United Kingdom as one of its closest relationships with a country in the West. So the fact that we're expecting someone from them to be present is rather interesting in itself. I think what we'll see is Palace officials will want to make sure that everyone gets an invite, but in terms of how strong that invite is and where they sit in the church and exactly who it is, whether it's an ambassador, whether it's a president, will be done with the advice of Whitehall. They'll want to make sure that everyone is represented, but that we don't cause any diplomatic upset at the same time.
Well, Dan, we know that VIPs will be arriving from Friday for the funeral on Monday, and that on Sunday a formal meeting will be held between the King and those dignitaries. Where's that going to be held, and will all of those VIPs, heads of states, be invited? Will it be predominantly, I suppose, other members of royalty from around Europe, you know, the Netherlands, Sweden and Spain and the like?
My understanding is that we're expecting King Charles to invite all of those representatives as heads of state to Buckingham Palace for that meeting. So, I mean, the man King Charles has, since the moment that his mother died, been incredibly busy touring the country, seeing people. He will again on Sunday night. It will be meeting a whole range of people. It's not just going to be members of other royal families who I think would be considered as close friends of King Charles. He is also going to be on show for a number of world leaders. So he is very much going to be working on Sunday night. It's not just going to be a case of mourning. It is going to be a case of him playing his part on the world stage and at work.